right, so Veroskills, an AI-powered staffing platform focused on connecting blue-collar talent with employers, recently announced the close of a $5.3 million funding round. Joining me now to discuss the news and tell us more about this niche is their CEO and founder, Daniel Walsh. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. He joins us from Birmingham, Alabama, where the company is based. Congrats on the funding, Daniel. Tell us first, what is Veros? What do you guys do?
Yeah, at Veroskills, we're solving the $1 trillion labor gap that exists in blue collar America with the technology of the time. And our big thing is we think that AI can not only be this technology that makes things so much more efficient and does things in a way that is not currently being done today, but also can bring in so many more people into the workforce. So our whole thing is to be a company for human flourishing that uses AI to put people in the best job they've ever had. And we think blue collar is that path today for people.
Okay. So describe how it works here. I got your slide up here, and you kind of give us some steps here in terms of how it works. But walk me through say the employer experience first. They come to you, they need to hire for a welder or something. I don't know. What
Yeah.
happens then?
So, so the whole, our whole idea was we want the employer experience to be very different than how it's currently being done today. So if AI is truly doing the job for you, then you shouldn't have to be scrolling through hundreds of candidates. You shouldn't have to be going on a bunch of different hiring platforms to find the candidates that are the best fit, or even reviewing tons of resumes. So, um, what what it all starts with is we'll have either a customer that will come in from a digital marketing kind of, out inbound kind of motion, or potentially even one of our sales reps reaching out to them. They will tell us, "Hey, I'm looking for a welder, and I need you all to find me a welder that has, 6 years experience, has these credentials, and I need them in Amarillo, Texas. And I'm going to need them also, within the next 2 weeks." So we get those job details in from that customer. And what we do is we'll really kind of drill into the details to make sure we have all of that right on the sales call. And then after that, that information is automatically transcribed from our calls and fed into our platform that then goes and starts posting out, thousands of different postings to job boards. We'll spin up all kinds of different campaigns to bring in candidates through platforms like Meta. And we kind of
So you're doing
start
some
that
social media advertising as well on those?
social media advertisement kind of to bring in top of funnel folks. But then our biggest thing is they then go through our tech stack. So instead of going through, a motion where, we have an army of recruiters and an army of HR people that are kind of working to guide them through all the different steps of hiring, they're they're going through a tech stack process. So they're talking to an AI interviewer, for instance. That AI interviewer can talk to them in any language that the candidate is most comfortable in speaking in. Um, and they're spending, 45 minutes to an hour oftentimes with that AI interview, kind of going over very specific skill assessment test and evaluation tests. So if you're a welder, you should know some very specific, you know, career information about certain types of welding. And we're going to gauge that knowledge to really see how well is somebody tracking against what is considered an expert welder and what they should know, versus just kind of general information. And So because we spend that time with them, we're spending 45 minutes on those interviews. We're really able to delve deep into how much do they know? Is there potentially other skill sets that they're not talking about? Or they don't have listed on their resume that
Mhm.
actually could be super valuable. And then if they get passed through there, they are automatically thumbs up to go through a background check. The AI is deciding who gets a background check and who doesn't get a background check based upon their interview score and then their overall matching. Um, and then,
Is that how necessary is that background check if you haven't really they haven't spoken to anybody yet, right? So how are you sure that it's worth it to background check them?
Yeah, so we've dialed in the our model so well with our AI technology that it was based upon tens of thousands of calls that are gauging experience, are gauging the skill assessment that somebody needs to have on specific types of tasks um, that if they're getting, a high score in that interview, then they're automatically going to be somebody that we need to talk to and that is worthy of a background check. Um, and when we first were building out the model, we had to keep it a little bit more of a back and forth where our kind of human reviewers were going in there and looking at the information to make sure that it actually was accurate. But now it's gotten so good that, we rarely, I would say maybe one
Mm.
in 10,000, we're having to step in and kind of do a manual review.
So you're kind of almost replacing that initial phone screen, it sounds like.
That's right. We're replacing it and we're spending so much more time, right? Because if you're a busy recruiter at, any recruiting agency, 15 minutes is kind of your max window. You have a lot of times to validate a candidate to see if they're worth your time because you're having to go through so many. But because we're using AI, we're able to spend a far greater amount of time, really kind of bring in details that would otherwise be missed.
Okay. And can it apply without a resume? Because I know some blue collar job may not have a resume handy. So
Yeah,
can they apply without that?
that's such a good point. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Um, Yeah, this is, I would say probably 20%, if not more, of the people applying don't have resumes. And so based on that interview, we actually create the resume. So our AI will actually create the resume for them
Hmm.
based on that interview that they do. Now, oftentimes the employer, isn't going the way we do things, they're not going to oftentimes put a hard requirement to see a resume before kind of seeing somebody, but it's a great thing to have in case they do. And so we're building that resume off of that 45 minutes to an hour kind of conversation that our AI is having with them. And yeah, so anybody without a resume, with a resume can apply, no problem.
Okay. So when does the human get involved here? Like where does the human enter this workflow?
So the human enters the workflow after the candidate has been fully onboarded, they've been added to the payroll system, they're ready as a W-2 employee to start on their first day. The human gets involved to essentially just take care of the back and forth with that customer to schedule the candidate. Um,
Okay, so
and
what's the candidate seeing on their end then? So does it tell them describe for me how what they see from you guys as far as the communication goes? What are you telling them at that point? Are they
yeah,
hired
so the
already?
Yeah, so they are getting, they're getting usually, 5 to 6 different messages for kind of every step of the process that they're going through. So, if they are kind of in the interview stage, we're telling them information like, hey, be sure you're dressing professionally for the interview. Make sure you're in a quiet place where we can hear you well. Just little things that we still require, even though it's an AI, to really
Mhm.
make a good assessment. So we're communicating all those things throughout. through text messages that are going out to the candidate. And then when the candidate is in that kind of review stage where they're waiting on kind of a first day on the job, we're saying, hey, you've been onboarded into our platform. You're on the you've been through all the HR requirements needed to start at this company. Now you are going to do your first successful working interview day at the company where they are going to have you show up. You're going to spend the day at that location. You'll be paid for your time. And if it works out, then you'll continue kind of on through the next day.
Okay, so you called it a working interview day. That's interesting.
It's,
So
yeah, we've seen
it's they're sight unseen to that point. They show up.
that's right.
Okay, interesting.
So
It's kind
we've
of like how
seen kind of,
Amazon does it a little bit with
that's
their
right.
warehouse
So
options.
what we've seen is because this is, we're essentially doing something with a lot of a lot of no human touches in the process.
Yeah.
And we can't just say to the client like, oh, just trust us, this person's fully hired. um, and so the way we get around that is we say, hey, this is going to be your working interview. If you don't believe the quality of what we're capable of, try this out for one day with this candidate and tell us we're wrong. And I would say we're now at a point where probably 8 out of 10 working interviews are having a very positive outcome from from the candidates
Okay.
and the employers.
Yep. And how long have you been? How many people have you put through the system here? Like, give me some, if you can, give me some numbers as far as what you've seen so far.
So we're having right now anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 a day that are coming through and interviewing and going through this kind of full process. We're looking, we're looking at adding probably somewhere around the 12 to 1,300, mark of employees in early Q1 of next year. Um, that are actually working out there in site locations for different customers.
Now, are you
Um,
nationwide at this point? Or are you focused on a certain region or?
we're nationwide, so that's the beautiful thing about our technology. We're not limited, so we're able to reliably source, vet, and interview hire candidates really anywhere. That companies need us. We just placed a rail carman, mechanic in this like out of it Texas location, like really out of it. And so I was like, if we could place a rail carman, mechanic, like I think we kind of have a wide range of areas and different roles we can work with.
Mhm. And what's the cost for employers on something like that?
So, what we do, our pricing is essentially we take a small markup on top of the hourly wage, and then we pass through the taxes and insurance cost to the employer. So,
Well,
usually
is
we're
is
about
the candidate employed by you guys, or is they employed by the company?
candidate is employed by us.
Okay, so you're kind of like
So
a.
we become the employer of record. And this is a big benefit because, because of our technology, we are able to serve we're able to serve sides of the blue collar industry that staffing and recruiting has historically never been able to solve. So um, we're able to staff the small business blue collar sector. So think plumbing, HVAC, electrical. Um, these are companies that need millions of workers over the next few years, and they don't, their best solutions oftentimes are Indeed or ZipRecruiter. And your Adecos or Ronstons of the world are not focused on this side of the industry. So be, because with an army of recruiters, an army of HR people, you could never reliably, make sense from a cost perspective to serve Joe's Plumbing or to serve your electrical contractor. So um, for us, that's kind of, where we're able to really focus on. Um, is serving areas that have never been served and not running into kind of any scaling issues there.
Does the yep, since you post jobs across networks and social media and stuff, does that was sort of that can become expensive, can it? How do you look at that as a business model as far as that goes? Because you can spend a lot of money on job ads if you wanted to.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So we have a few different verticals. For us right now, I think our average acquisition cost is somewhere around $5 to $6 per candidate um, on our social media driven like paid advertising. But then on top of that, you know, the way we've built our system is essentially we want to be on every job board imaginable that is dripping in candidates constantly. And so we've built in incredible automations that as soon as our AI or as soon as our new job from a customer is onboarded to the platform and candidates start trickling in, we're able to get that because we're posting on hundreds of different job boards for every one job that we're creating on our platform. And then the social media driven side of that is kind of like the accelerant just to even bring more candidates. And so, the I think our greatest superpower as a company is we are able to process through thousands of candidates in literally hours. And that would take any staffing and recruiting firm, weeks, if not months sometimes, to process that same load of candidates and to go through the full 9 yards of, the kind of recruitment process with them.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where we're able to find really amazing people is by processing large quantities of candidates. And so yeah, being able to post on every possible job board out there that trickles in candidates for free, and then using social media as kind of the accelerant has really been the kind of game changer for us.
Very cool. Okay. Um, why'd you pick this niche and talk more about the overall labor shortage in blue collar and certain industries? It seems like I don't know if I was a kid today coming out of college or coming out of high school, I probably would look at trades as a viable
Yeah,
career path because it is so lucrative right now for many of these jobs.
yeah, I think we've been everybody's been telling us for the last 20 years that if you want to set your kid well up in life, you need to get them into a CS degree, you need to train them in software engineering, and they're going to be set. And the reality of our time is that is very much not the case anymore. As large language models and LLMs are taking more and more of kind of the white collar task on with those systems, there's just less of those kind of roles needed. But the place where you can still really comfortably make six figures a year is in blue collar. And it's an area that has been neglected for decades. And so what you have is, a generation, the baby boomers that were kind of fueling the blue collar sector. They've been retiring at a clip of 10,000 a day for over 10 years now. And not many people have kind of been realizing this is the spot to get into. So, I think this is a $1 trillion problem today. I think it gets much worse every year we go by. Um, and I think if I'm an 18-year-old today, you know, my future looks very shaky getting into a career in tech right now. But if I'm looking at something that I can reliably get to a clip where I'm making six figures a year, there's really not many better paths than a career in blue collar. Um, and if you're a master plumber, if you're a welder, these are incredibly paying jobs. My dad was a plumber for 48 years, and I've seen this firsthand where if you're somebody that works hard and learns these trades, it's kind of a wide open sea for you of opportunity. And so, I think, it's kind of, for me, I kind of look at where's the human story in AI. So much of what we're seeing today is focused around half the jobs in the US, half the jobs in the world are going to be cut due to AI, you know, and we're all going to have to live off of universal basic income and things like this, just to live. Um, and I think people get a lot of pride in the work they do. And an area that's not going away anytime soon is blue collar. And there's millions of opportunities today. And I think there's going to be tens of millions of opportunities as we're starting to already see trillions of dollars go into building out all these data center projects that are the equivalent of building out a small city. The number one jobs you need are electricians, plumbers, construction workers to go in there and make that reality happen. And that's not even focused on all the, millions of services companies and construction companies and all these companies that already had a massive problem. So, my part of what we're doing is trying to say, hey, the future is very bright and we think blue collar can be the way that happens.
What would you say your competitors are? I would kind of put you maybe in the Indeed Flex category as far as kind of virtual staffing goes. What do you say?
Yeah, I think, it's kind of, it's somewhere between Indeed and your large kind of staffing recruiting agencies. So we play in kind of the middle where both of those kind of have a very hard time playing. So we're able to serve, the millions of SMB service companies in the US, which your Adecos would never focus on. But people are sick of just going through profiles, right? The beautiful thing of what we do is we go through all the work of screening a perfect candidate, interviewing them, getting references on them, doing all the work, and then we send that person to their door, and they're a phenomenal candidate instead of going through hours and hours of scrolling candidates online. And then the big enterprise staffing recruiting world, they don't want to really touch these certain sectors. So, it's very difficult to kind of refuel the American blue collar workforce when, the biggest kind of companies that are solving that won't even touch the millions of really key infrastructure companies out there. So I think we're somewhere between an Indeed and the large staffing recruiting firms. Um, and I think we kind of play in a portion of the market that they're currently not able to do today. And the only reason we can do that is because we're an AI native company. We've built from the ground up using large language models to do all of the work that are done with either software or people today.
What's your biggest challenge, Daniel, as a business right now, would you say?
I think the biggest challenge is is really around finding enough qualified people. So we process through everyone, right? Like everyone out there. Um, and I think, a big part of our strategy is we have to actually upskill people at the same time as placing them into careers because there is simply not enough people that have been trained up to meet all of the master plumber open positions that exist today, to meet all the welder positions that are open today. So, we have an upskilling platform that has 900 courses on it. That if you start as a general laborer through our platform, we're going to upskill you for free and get you to where you can become a licensed journeyman, a licensed, apprentice, a licensed, master plumber, an electrician, whatever it is. We're going to give you the training that helps you get there and helps you get on that path while you're actually working. If we're not doing that, we have no chance of being able to make a real dent in this problem because there's just simply not enough skilled people today to meet all the skilled um, openings out there. So that's a big part of our challenge is upskilling the supply and the individuals to really meet the demand that exists.
When you're talking to a small employer, do they have reservations about kind of this getting this hire ready person on day one there? Do you have to like, convince them that that's a good idea?
Yeah, for us, we say, hey, on day one, we cover the cost. So we're gonna go through the full
So it's no risk
motion,
for them, right? Until that
no
point.
risk for them. So and we say, hey, don't even sign a contract with us on day one. We want to show you that AI can hire individuals far better because we're able to look at millions of different parameters. We're able to spend so much more time. So don't sign a contract with us. Let us show you first. And that's the thing that really sells people is that, hey, okay, I'm not if I'm not on the line for anything, you're giving me a full day of free labor essentially to test somebody out. Then sure. And so somebody shows up and 8 out of 10 times the customer is extremely impressed that we were able to find somebody. Things we hear all the time is like, I've been through everybody in this area. How are you guys able to bring this candidate in? I've never even seen them or talked or heard of them before. Um, and and then after that day, they sign the agreement on our platform. And that person is off into the races working with them. And then here's the cool thing, because we're providing this services to to many of our customers are the millions of SMBs that exist out there. We're, if they were 1099ing their workers before, they're now a W-2 employee. We're now handling the taxes, the benefits, the insurance all through our platform. And we now offer an amazing retention strategy with upskilling their workers. These are things, my dad as a plumber could never offer his guys working out there, and he would churn a lot of people because he wasn't able to offer the same things a large company could.
Mhm.
um, and it gives more security and more benefit to the worker, but also gives that employer the retention that they're not seeing. And um, you know and then to kind of do the AI first strategy with the SMB service world. These are half of our customers have an AOL email account for
Mm.
signing up. You have to let them experience the difference, and so when they're experiencing that, they are almost always blown away. And then they believe us. They're like, okay, you guys actually can do this. And then what oftentimes we're seeing now is they're actually onboarding their existing team members to our platform, that were working at their company already. And because we can now keep their team longer through all the different benefits and resources we offer.
Interesting. How does that whole relationship work then if they're employed by you, but yet they're working in the field for this other company? Is there any problems with that or?
Well, we have an agreement that, is in place with every employer that, hey, these are your employees. We're no different than a ADP that is, handling the payroll and the benefits. The only difference is we're we're doing 10 times the amount of an ADP with not only finding the workers, but also retaining the workers. Um, so, every company though, we go over, hey, we have our clear agreement guidelines that, we're not going to be trying to take workers off of your job site and putting them somewhere else. These are your workers. You set the rules of your company. But now, if you're a service company, you're usually, as an owner, my dad certainly was, you're spending a significant amount of your time in the field actually doing jobs. And then they get back to the office and they're like, I have to run payroll taxes, I got to do workman's comp claims, and I got to think about hiring 10 people that I don't have. And by us doing that, it allows the business owner to focus on their business and not be constantly consumed in the business.
Gotcha.
Um, and that's a game changer for these guys.
Nice. How long did you operate before you picked up your funding? What was that time frame there?
Yeah, so we've raised 8.4 million in funding
Oh,
to date as a company. And the first few years for us was really finding the model that worked as a company. So we've been around for 4.5 years in total as a company, and we were initially focused on, okay, we're going to focus on upskilling the candidates, and then we are going to let people come in and kind of hire people off of the platform. And what we saw was you have to really focus on the upskilling when they're in the job, and then two, the last thing a busy business owner wants to do is log on to a new kind of platform that they're not familiar with and spend a few hours trying to siphon through who's a good candidate, who's not. And we were like, wait a minute, we're doing this backwards. If AI is such a revolutionary technology, it should do the work that people are doing, and then the business owner shouldn't have to do any of that other than meeting the candidate and saying, "Wow, I'm blown away. You guys knocked this out of the park." Um, and so that's what we kind of realized. So we spent a few years in hard mode,
mm, mm.
doing that, and then we got wise.
Gotcha. So yeah, so you've been around for a couple years and perfecting the tool here and figuring out your play here, right? So
That's right.
all right, we'll tell the audience where to go, Dan, to learn more. What's the URL?
Yeah, so it's Veroskills, VRO skills.com. And if you're a candidate looking for a job, you can start your hiring journey there with us. If you're an employer, you can also go there to get a job up and on the platform. And
Mhm.
the beautiful thing is we can guarantee to have a worker out to you in a matter of days. Opposed to the average, which is, a few weeks to a month.
All right, there you go, folks. That's a bold mission, Daniel. So I wish you well, and definitely something needed in the space overall. But I like the whole no risk aspect of it as well. It's pretty cool, and wish you well, man.
Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate you having me on.
Anytime. Let's definitely stay in touch and keep us apprised of what's happening with the company as well. So that will do for this episode of the RegTech Podcast. Thanks again to Jobcase and Dahlia for their sponsorship. Be sure to follow myself and RegTech Media on LinkedIn. See every podcast, video, and blog we publish. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And remember, always be recruiting.